There are moments in life when silence becomes your greatest weapon. I learned that lesson at 73 years old, standing outside a funeral home in the pouring rain, watching through the window as my own daughter buried my husband, without telling me he had died. For 2 weeks, Harold had been gone. 2 weeks of me calling, texting, leaving voicemails that went unanswered. 2 weeks of my daughter Stephanie telling me he was too busy to talk. And now I understood why. Hello everyone, before we continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel, and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Margaret Hartwell, and I had been married to Harold Hartwell for 47 years. We built a life together in Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, a modest ranch house on 3 acres, 2 cars paid off, and a construction business that Harold sold 5 years ago when his heart started acting up. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Or so I thought. What I didn't know was that my daughter had been planning this moment for months. I pressed my face closer to the funeral home window, rain streaming down my cheeks mixing with tears I couldn't control. Inside, Stephanie stood at the podium in an elegant black dress I'd never seen before, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Her husband Marcus stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, both of them playing the role of devastated family. Around them sat maybe 30 people, Harold's old business partners, neighbors from our street, people from our church. People who knew me. People who should have called me. But nobody did. Because Stephanie told them I was too fragile to attend. She told them I was in a memory care facility in Ohio, that I couldn't even remember Harold's name anymore. She told them I had advanced dementia and the shock would kill me. I found all this out later from Mrs. Henderson next door, who felt so guilty she couldn't look me in the eye when she confessed what she'd been told. The lies my daughter spread weren't just cruel, they were calculated. I watched as they lowered Harold's casket, watched as Stephanie threw a rose on top, watched as Marcus whispered something in her ear that made her nod. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. As people filed out, Stephanie pulled an envelope from her purse and showed it to Marcus. Even from outside, I could see the letterhead, Whitmore and Associates, Harold's attorney. They were smiling. Actually smiling. At my husband's funeral. That's when I made my decision. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. I would stay silent, stay invisible, and watch what they did next. Because Harold had always told me, in business, the person who speaks first loses. And I had a feeling my daughter was about to reveal exactly who she'd become. I turned away from the window, got into my old Honda, and drove home through the rain. Tomorrow, I would call Harold's lawyer myself. Tonight, I would grieve alone, just like my daughter intended. But I wouldn't forget this moment. And I wouldn't forgive it either. 3 days after the funeral I wasn't invited to, Stephanie and Marcus showed up at my door. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard the doorbell, and for a split second, I considered not answering. But curiosity won. I needed to see how they would play this. I needed to watch them lie to my face. When I opened the door, Stephanie's expression was priceless, shock, confusion, then rapid calculation as she tried to figure out her next move. "Mom," she gasped, throwing her arms around me in a hug that felt as genuine as a $3 bill. "Oh my God, we've been so worried about you. We've been calling and calling. Why haven't you answered your phone?" I let her embrace me, feeling Marcus's eyes on us, assessing. He was the smarter one, I realized. He knew something was wrong. Stephanie pulled back, holding my shoulders, her eyes scanning my face like she was looking for cracks in my sanity. "I've been here," I said simply. "Where else would I be?" The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. I watched Stephanie glance at Marcus, watched him give her the smallest shake of his head. "Don't panic," that gesture said. "Stick to the script." She recovered quickly, I'll give her that. We were told you were in Ohio. At Meadowbrook. The Memory Care Center. Her voice trembled with what was supposed to be relief but sounded more like fear. Who told you that? I asked, keeping my voice steady. I moved aside to let them in, playing the role of confused elderly mother perfectly. They stepped into the living room, both of them looking around like they expected the house to have changed. Marcus's eyes lingered on the furniture, the flat-screen TV Harold bought last year, the china cabinet with my grandmother's dishes. He was doing math in his head, I could tell. Calculating value, estimating worth. Stephanie sat on the couch, patting the cushion beside her. Mom, we need to talk. About Dad. Her voice cracked on that last word, and I almost believed her. Almost. He passed away 2 weeks ago. We tried to reach you, but your phone kept going to voicemail. We were frantic. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it, feeling how cold her fingers were. The funeral was yesterday. We had to go ahead without you. We thought you were sick. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. This woman who I'd given birth to, raised, loved unconditionally, when had she become capable of this? I was at the funeral, I said quietly. I stood outside in the rain and watched through the window. The color drained from Stephanie's face. Marcus stood up abruptly, his mask slipping for just a moment. And in that moment, I saw everything I needed to see. They weren't here to comfort me. They were here to control me. And now they knew their plan had failed. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Have you ever dealt with family betrayal? Let us know in the comments below, we read every single one. After Stephanie and Marcus left, making awkward excuses about appointments and promising to return soon, I locked the door and went straight to Harold's study. He'd always been a meticulous man, keeping files organized in labeled folders, important documents in a fireproof safe. But 3 months before he died, he'd called me into this room and handed me a key. If anything happens to me, he'd said, his voice serious in a way that scared me, open the bottom drawer. Read everything. And don't tell Stephanie anything until you do. At the time, I'd brushed it off as Harold being paranoid. His heart condition made him think about mortality more than usual. But now, sitting at his mahogany desk with that key in my hand, I understood. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known what our daughter was becoming. The key fit a locked drawer I'd never opened before. Inside was a manila folder marked for Margaret only in Harold's careful handwriting. My hands shook as I pulled it out. The first document was a letter, dated 2 months before his death. My dearest Margaret, it began, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I pray you'll forgive me for the secrets I kept. But I kept them to protect you, to protect everything we built together. 6 months ago, Stephanie came to me asking about my will. She didn't ask how I was feeling or if I needed anything. She asked about property, about assets, about what would happen to everything when I died. I had to stop reading. My vision blurred with tears as Harold's words painted a picture I didn't want to see. I hired a private investigator, the letter continued. I needed to know if my suspicions were true. Margaret, she's been planning this for over a year. She and Marcus have debts you wouldn't believe, credit cards maxed out, a second mortgage on their house, car payments they can't afford. They've been living beyond their means, banking on inheritance to save them. She's told people you have dementia. She's been setting the stage to have you declared incompetent. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk, Harold's words burning into my brain. Our daughter. Our only child. The baby I'd rocked to sleep, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike, the woman I'd been so proud of when she graduated college. How had we missed this? "I've made arrangements," Harold wrote. "Everything is in your name alone, the house, the accounts, everything. She can't touch it. But you have to be smart, Margaret. Don't let her know what you know. Not yet. Let her show you who she really is. And then decide what you want to do." The rest of the folder contained bank statements, property deeds, investment records, all solely in my name. The checking account had $47,000. The savings had $320,000. There were investment accounts totaling $890,000. The house was worth at least $425,000, paid off completely. Harold's 1969 Mustang in the garage was valued at $65,000. I was looking at nearly $2 million in assets. Assets Stephanie thought she'd inherit. Assets she'd already spent in her mind. But the final document made my heart stop. It was a recording transcript, a conversation between Stephanie and Marcus, recorded 4 months ago. "Once Dad's gone, we tell everyone Mom's senile," Stephanie's voice said in black and white. "We get power of attorney, move her into the cheapest nursing home we can find, and sell everything. The house alone will clear our debts. Mom won't know the difference, she'll be so medicated she won't remember her own name." I sat in Harold's chair and wept. Not for him, he was beyond pain now. I wept for the daughter I'd lost long before she buried her father without me. At 9 a.m. the next morning, I sat in the office of Thomas Whitmore, Harold's attorney for 30 years. He was a tall man in his 60s with kind eyes that had seen too many family betrayals. When his secretary showed me in, he stood immediately, coming around his desk to shake my hand. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said warmly, "I've been expecting your call. Please, sit. I'm so sorry for your loss. Harold was a good man and a dear friend." "Thank you," I managed. "Mr. Whitmore, I need to understand what's happening. My daughter had one of your envelopes at Harold's funeral. A funeral she didn't invite me to." His expression darkened. He returned to his chair and pulled out a thick file. "Yes, I'm aware. Stephanie made an appointment 3 days after Harold passed, before the funeral. She claimed to be acting on your behalf as your representative since you were incapacitated. She wanted to discuss the estate distribution." "And what did you tell her?" I asked, my heart pounding. Mr. Whitmore smiled, a smile that wasn't quite friendly. "I told her that I couldn't discuss anything without you present, as you are Harold's primary beneficiary and executor." She became quite agitated. Her husband threatened legal action, said they'd have you declared incompetent. I informed them that such a process requires medical evidence and court proceedings, neither of which they possess. They left angry. He slid a document across the desk to me. "This is Harold's will, updated 2 months before his death. Everything, and I mean everything, goes to you unconditionally. There's a provision for Stephanie, a trust fund of $50,000, to be distributed in annual payments of $5,000 over 10 years, provided she maintains contact with you and treats you with respect. If she contests the will or attempts to have you declared incompetent, she gets nothing." Harold was very specific about that. I stared at the papers, seeing Harold's signature, his final act of protection. "There's more," Mr. Whitmore continued. "Harold set up a separate account, a trust that activates if Stephanie tries anything legal against you. It contains $100,000 earmarked specifically for your legal defense. He also left detailed documentation of Stephanie's financial situation, her statements about you, and evidence of her intentions. He wanted you protected, Margaret. He knew what was coming." I felt tears threatening again but pushed them back. This wasn't the time for grief. This was the time for strategy. What should I do? I asked. Mr. Whitmore leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. My professional advice? Wait. Let her make the first move. Document everything, every conversation, every visit, every demand. Don't tell her about the will yet. Let her believe she's in control. When she finally shows her true hand, and she will, we'll be ready. Harold taught me that in business, patience is power. The same applies here. I left his office with the will in my purse and a plan forming in my mind. Stephanie wanted to play games? Fine. But she was playing against someone who'd been married to a master strategist for 47 years. And I'd learned from the best. Drop a comment right now telling us what you would do in Margaret's situation. Would you confront your daughter immediately, or stay quiet like she is? We're dying to know your thoughts. 4 days later, Stephanie returned with glossy brochures and a rehearsed speech. I'd been expecting this, Mr. Whitmore had warned me it was coming. She arrived at 10 in the morning, Marcus in tow, both dressed like they were going to a business meeting. She spread the brochures across my kitchen table with the confidence of someone who'd already made the decision. Mom, we've been doing research, she began, her voice dripping with false concern. We think it's time to talk about your living situation. The brochures advertised Sunset Meadows Retirement Community, a sprawling complex about 40 miles away. The photos showed smiling elderly people playing bingo, eating in communal dining rooms, sitting in small apartments that looked more like hospital rooms than homes. It's a wonderful facility, Stephanie continued, pointing at pictures. They have 24-hour nursing care, activities every day, chef-prepared meals. You wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this big house anymore. You'd be safe, surrounded by people your own age. I'm safe here, I said mildly, sipping my coffee. I've lived in this house for 42 years. Marcus jumped in, his voice smooth and practiced. But Margaret, what if something happens? What if you fall and can't reach the phone? What if there's a fire or a break-in? At Sunset Meadows, there's always someone nearby. Plus, the social aspects, you'd make friends, have activities. It's really the best option for someone in your situation. My situation? I asked, keeping my voice innocent. What situation is that? Stephanie's mask slipped slightly. Irritation flashed across her face before she caught herself. Mom, you're 73 years old. You're alone now. This house is too much for you. And honestly, it doesn't make financial sense to keep it. The property taxes alone are $10,000 a year. Utilities, maintenance, insurance, it all adds up. Selling would free up capital you could use for quality care. There it was. The real agenda. Not my safety or happiness, the money. And where would that money go? I asked, watching them carefully. The sale proceeds would go into a managed account, Marcus said quickly. We'd help you set that up, of course. The good news is Sunset Meadows only costs about $3,500 a month for their basic package. Very affordable. You could live there comfortably for years, and the remaining funds would be secured for the future. Secured for their future, he meant. I set down my coffee cup and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She couldn't meet my eyes. Let me think about it, I said finally. This is a big decision. I'll need time. Stephanie's jaw tightened. Mom, we don't have a lot of time. There's a waiting list for Sunset Meadows. If we don't put down a deposit soon, you'll lose your spot. A deposit. Of course. How much? I asked. How much is this deposit? $5,000, Marcus said. Fully refundable if you change your mind within 30 days. But it wouldn't be refundable to me, it would go straight to paying off their credit cards. I saw through it all now, saw the whole elaborate scheme. They'd pocket the deposit, pressure me into signing more papers, slowly drain every account Harold and I built. I'll think about it, I repeated firmly. You can leave the brochures. After they left, I called Mr. Whitmore. They want $5,000, I told him. For a deposit on a nursing home I'm never going to live in. His sigh was heavy. Document it, Margaret. Write down everything they said. The noose is tightening, but they're tightening it themselves. Just keep being patient. Patience. That word again. But my patience was wearing thin. Against my better judgment, I agreed to tour Sunset Meadows. Not because I was considering it, but because I wanted to see exactly what kind of place Stephanie thought was appropriate for her mother. We drove there on a Thursday morning, Stephanie driving, Marcus in the passenger seat, me in the back like a child. The facility was worse than the brochures suggested. The building was institutional beige, surrounded by a parking lot with no trees, no gardens, nothing living except the residents slowly shuffling along interior hallways. A woman named Patricia greeted us, 50-something, too much makeup, smile too bright. You must be Margaret, she gushed, taking my hand. Stephanie has told me so much about you. Let me show you around our wonderful community. She led us through automatic doors into a lobby that smelled like disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. The wonderful community was a series of narrow hallways lined with identical doors. Through open doorways, I glimpsed residents sitting alone in front of televisions, staring at nothing. Patricia showed us a sample apartment, 200 square feet, maybe less. A single bed, a small dresser, one chair, a tiny bathroom. Cozy, Patricia chirped. Everything you need, nothing you don't. The window overlooked the parking lot. My bedroom at home was 3 times the size, with windows facing the garden Harold planted for me. And the common areas are where the magic happens. Patricia continued, leading us to a dining room filled with tables and more residents, most eating in silence, some being fed by aides. 3 meals a day, chef prepared, Patricia said. I looked at the trays, mystery meat, instant mashed potatoes, canned green beans. The chef was probably a line cook with frozen meals. Activities are scheduled throughout the day, she went on, showing us a room where 6 people sat in a circle, half asleep, while someone led them in singing songs from the 1950s. This was Stephanie's vision for me. This was where she wanted me to fade away quietly while she liquidated everything Harold and I built. The best part is the security, Patricia said. We have medical staff on duty 24/7. If there's any emergency, we're right there. Families have complete peace of mind. Peace of mind for the families, maybe. Prison for the residents. And the cost? I asked, though I already knew. Our basic package is $3,500 per month, Patricia confirmed. That includes room, meals, and basic activities. Medical care beyond basic is additional. Incontinence supplies, specialized medications, memory care, those are all separate fees. We finished the tour in Patricia's office, where she slid a contract across the desk. The deposit is $5,000, and we'd need first and last month's rent, $7,000 total. So $12,000 to secure your spot. $12,000 now, not $5,000. I looked at Stephanie, who wouldn't meet my eyes. I'll need to think about this, I said, standing up. Patricia's smile faltered. Mrs. Hartwell, I should mention we have several families interested in our available units. If you wait too long, I'll take my chances, I said firmly. As we drove home in silence, I knew this was almost over. Soon, very soon, I would drop the hammer. And Stephanie would learn what it meant to underestimate her mother. Before we continue, let us know, have you ever had to tour nursing homes for a loved one? What was your experience? Drop your stories in the comments, your experience might help someone else going through this. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. The calls started the next day. Stephanie, then Marcus, then Stephanie again, each one more urgent than the last. Mom, Patricia called. Someone else is looking at that unit. We need to decide. I let them go to voicemail. Text messages followed, Mom, please call us back. This is important. Then, we're worried about you. Are you okay? Finally, Mom, we're coming over tomorrow to talk. This can't wait. I didn't respond. Instead, I spent the afternoon with Mr. Whitmore's investigator, signing papers that authorized him to dig deeper into Stephanie and Marcus's finances. When they showed up the next morning, they weren't alone. They'd brought someone, a woman in her 40s wearing business attire and carrying a briefcase. Mom, this is Diana Foster, Stephanie said as I opened the door. She's a geriatric care specialist. We asked her to do an assessment, just to make sure you're managing okay on your own. So this was their next move. Bring in an expert to declare me incompetent. I didn't agree to any assessment, I said calmly. Diana smiled, professional, practiced. Mrs. Hartwell, this is completely voluntary. Your daughter is concerned about your welfare. I'd just like to ask you a few questions, maybe observe you doing some daily tasks. It's standard procedure for people your age living alone. People my age. As if turning 73 meant automatic incompetence. And if I refuse? I asked. Diana's smile didn't waver. That's certainly your right. But I'd have to note in my report that you were uncooperative. Sometimes that raises concerns about judgment and decision-making capacity. It was a trap, but a clumsy one. If I cooperated, she'd find some reason to question my competence. If I refused, they'd use that as evidence I was impaired. But they'd made a crucial mistake, they'd brought her to my house without a court order, without any legal authority. I'll tell you what, I said, looking directly at Stephanie. I'll submit to any assessment you want. But I choose the doctor. And I want my attorney present. Stephanie's face went red. Your attorney? Mom, this isn't a legal matter. We're just trying to help you. Then you won't mind my attorney being there, I said sweetly. Mr. Whitmore has been handling my affairs for 3 decades. I trust his judgment. Marcus stepped forward, his voice harder now. Margaret, you're being unreasonable. We're trying to protect you. Do you understand what could happen if you fall, if you get confused, if something goes wrong? We could be held liable for not intervening. There it was, the threat beneath the concern. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about covering themselves. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. Now. Diana looked uncomfortable, gathering her briefcase. Stephanie grabbed my arm. Mom, please. We love you. We're doing this because we care. I pulled my arm free. If you loved me, you would have invited me to your father's funeral. If you cared, you wouldn't be trying to lock me away so you can sell my house. Get out. They left, but as Stephanie walked past me, she whispered, You're going to regret this. We'll do what we have to do. That night, I called Mr. Whitmore. They threatened me, I told him. They're escalating. His response was calm but firm. Good. Let them. Every move they make builds our case. Margaret, are you ready to end this? Because if you are, I have everything we need. I thought about Harold, about the life we built, about the daughter we raised who'd become a stranger. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Let's finish this. I invited Stephanie and Marcus to the house on a Saturday morning. I didn't tell them why, just said we needed to talk. They arrived looking triumphant. They thought I was surrendering, ready to sign whatever papers they'd prepared. Marcus carried a folder thick with documents. Stephanie's smile was wide and fake. Mom, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this, she said, settling onto the couch like she owned it. We have everything ready to go. The Sunset Meadows application, power of attorney forms, everything. We're not signing anything, I said. The smile faltered. What do you mean? Stephanie asked. I sat across from them in Harold's favorite chair, feeling his presence, his strength. I mean, I know everything. I know about your debts. I know you told people I have dementia. I know you plan to take power of attorney and sell my house. I know you excluded me from your father's funeral deliberately. I know all of it. The color drained from Stephanie's face. Marcus started to stand, but I held up my hand. Sit down, Marcus. I'm not finished. My voice was steel now, nothing elderly or confused about it. Harold knew too. Months before he died, he figured out what you were planning. He recorded conversations. He hired investigators. He changed everything, the will, the accounts, the property deeds. Everything is in my name alone, and there's nothing you can do about it. Stephanie found her voice. That's not possible. Dad wouldn't, he promised me. He promised you what? I asked. An inheritance you didn't earn? Money you were counting on before he was even dead? We have expenses. Stephanie shouted, her composure cracking. Do you know how much private school costs for the kids? Do you know what our mortgage payment is? We've been struggling for years, and you and Dad just sat on this money like it was yours alone. It was ours alone, I said coldly. We worked for it. We saved it. We sacrificed for it. What have you sacrificed, Stephanie? What have you built? Marcus tried another tactic. Margaret, be reasonable. You're 73 years old. You can't manage all these assets alone. You need help. I have help, I said. Professional help. My attorney, my financial advisor, my accountant, all people Harold set up for me. People who work for me, not against me. I pulled out the folder Mr. Whitmore had prepared. This is Harold's will. You get $50,000, paid in 10 annual installments of $5,000, provided you maintain a respectful relationship with me. If you contest this will or attempt to have me declared incompetent, you get nothing. Harold was very clear about that. I let that sink in. Stephanie was crying now, ugly, angry tears. How could you do this to me? I'm your daughter. How could I? The rage I'd been holding back for weeks finally broke free. You excluded me from my own husband's funeral. You told people I was in a memory care facility. You planned to lock me away and steal everything I had. And you ask how I could do this to you? I stood up, trembling with fury. Get out of my house. Both of you. Now. Mom, please, Stephanie reached for me, but I stepped back. You can have the $50,000, or you can walk away with nothing. Those are your only choices. Decide now. Marcus grabbed Stephanie's arm, pulling her toward the door. This isn't over, he said. We'll fight this. We'll try it, I interrupted. Harold left $100,000 specifically for legal defense. I'll bankrupt you before you get a penny of my money. They left, Stephanie sobbing, Marcus silent and furious. After the door closed, I sat in Harold's chair and cried, not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. I was free. Finally free. 3 months after the confrontation, I sat in Mr. Whitmore's office signing the final documents. Stephanie hadn't contacted me since that day. No calls, no texts, no apologies. The silence hurt more than I expected, but it was also liberating. The trust is established, Mr. Whitmore explained. Your assets are protected. The house, the investments, everything is secure. Stephanie and Marcus filed a contest to the will, but withdrew it when they saw Harold's evidence. They don't have the money for a prolonged legal battle. Good, I said simply. But sitting in that office, I realized something. I wasn't just protecting money, I was protecting my future. A future Harold had ensured I could live on my own terms. Mr. Whitmore, I said slowly, what if I wanted to travel? To do something completely different? He smiled. Margaret, you have nearly $2 million in liquid assets. You can do anything you want. What are you thinking? I pulled out a brochure I'd been carrying in my purse, not for Sunset Meadows, but for Habitat for Humanity's senior volunteer program. I want to build houses, I said. In places where people need them. Guatemala, or Peru, or somewhere I've never been. I want to use my hands and my time for something that matters. Mr. Whitmore's smile widened. Harold would have loved that. Over the next month, I prepared. I sold the Mustang, it brought $70,000 at auction. I put the house on the market, not because Stephanie wanted me to, but because I didn't need it anymore. It sold in 3 weeks for $475,000. I kept what I needed, donated what I didn't. I set up a scholarship fund at the local community college in Harold's name, $50,000 for students studying construction management. I donated another $50,000 to the church where Harold and I were married, where I'd spent 47 years of Sundays, where my daughter had buried him without me. The pastor cried when I handed him the check. Margaret, this is too generous, he said. It's not generosity, I told him. It's gratitude. For the life Harold and I had. For the years we were blessed with. This is how I say thank you. 6 months after Harold's death, I boarded a plane to Guatemala. I was 74 years old, traveling alone for the first time in my life, going to a country where I didn't speak the language. I was terrified and exhilarated. The Habitat program matched me with a team building homes in a village outside Antigua. My job was simple, mixing mortar, carrying supplies, painting walls. The work was hard, my body ached, but I'd never felt more alive. I wasn't someone's wife or someone's mother. I was just Margaret, useful and needed. At night, I wrote in a journal Harold had given me years ago. I wrote about the families who'd received the houses we were building. I wrote about the volunteers from around the world. I wrote about discovering strength I didn't know I had. And yes, I wrote about Stephanie. About the daughter I'd lost, the relationship that died before Harold did. I mourned that loss honestly. But I also wrote about freedom, about choosing my own path, about refusing to become invisible. Harold had given me one final gift, not money, but permission to live fully until my very last breath. And I intended to honor that gift. A year after Harold's death, I returned to Willow Creek for a brief visit. The house had been transformed by its new owners, a young family with 3 children. They'd painted it yellow, added a playground in the backyard. It looked happy, alive. I drove past slowly, feeling no sadness, only satisfaction. That chapter was closed. I'd moved on. I rented an apartment in Guatemala City, dividing my time between volunteer work and exploring. I learned Spanish. I made friends with women my age who'd also broken free from expectations. The money Harold left me wasn't just sitting in accounts anymore. I was using it, for living, for giving, for creating change. I established a foundation that built homes for elderly women in Central America. Women like me, who'd been widowed, who'd been told they were burdens, who deserved dignity and independence. We'd built 14 houses so far. Small, sturdy homes where women could live out their years with pride. Each one had a plaque, in memory of Harold Hartwell, who believed in second chances. Stephanie reached out once, 8 months after our confrontation. An email, not a phone call. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can we talk?" I stared at those words for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to rebuild something. But a wiser part remembered the funeral I watched through a window, the lies she told, the coldness in her eyes when she talked about my money. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. But not yet. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. Instead, I focused on the life I was building. I took cooking classes and learned to make tamales. I hiked volcanoes with groups of adventurous seniors. I wrote a blog about aging, independence, and refusing to be invisible. It gained followers, other women my age who'd been told to shrink, to disappear, to accept whatever their families decided. "Don't let them put you away," I wrote. "Don't let them silence you. You have value, you have voice, you have time left to live on your own terms." The messages I received were heartbreaking and inspiring. Mr. Whitmore called me quarterly to discuss finances. "You're spending down your principal," he cautioned gently. "At this rate, you'll run out of money in 15 years. "I'll be 89, I said. "And I'll have lived one hell of a life." "That sounds like perfect planning to me." He laughed. "Harold would be proud of you, Margaret. You know that, right?" I did know. I felt it every day, Harold's presence, his approval, his love. He'd given me freedom, and I was using it fully. On the anniversary of Harold's death, I visited his grave for the first time. I brought flowers and sat on the grass beside his headstone. "I did it," I told him. "I protected everything you left me. I used it the way you hoped I would. And I'm happy, Harold. Really, truly happy." The wind rustled through the trees, and I chose to believe that was his response. I stayed for an hour talking to him about Guatemala, about the houses we'd built, about the women whose lives had changed because he'd been smart enough to protect me. As I stood to leave, I noticed Stephanie standing by her car in the parking lot, watching me. She looked older, tired. We stared at each other across the cemetery, and for a moment, I thought she might approach. But she just raised her hand in a small wave, got in her car, and drove away. Maybe one day we'd talk. Maybe one day I'd forgive her. But that day wasn't today. Today was for Harold, for gratitude, for celebrating the life I was still living. Now, as I write this from my small apartment overlooking the mountains of Antigua, I want you to understand something. This story isn't about money. It's about dignity. It's about refusing to be erased, dismissed, or warehoused because you've reached a certain age. It's about the courage to say no when everyone expects you to say yes. Harold didn't leave me an inheritance, he left me power. The power to choose. The power to live. The power to matter. If you're watching this and you're being pressured by family, being told you're too old to make decisions, being pushed toward choices that serve everyone but you, stop. Get legal help. Protect yourself. Document everything. Don't let guilt or love or obligation convince you to surrender your autonomy. You earned your life. You deserve to live it fully. And if your family truly loves you, they'll support your independence, not try to control it. That's the difference between love and manipulation. I'm 75 now. I have maybe 10 good years left, maybe 15 if I'm lucky. I intend to spend every single one of them on my terms. Building houses, helping others, exploring places I've never seen. When I die, there might not be much money left. The foundation will get what remains. Stephanie will get her $5,000 annual payment if she chooses to accept it. But my real legacy won't be money, it'll be the homes I helped build, the women I helped empower, the proof that life doesn't end at 70. To Harold, thank you for seeing the storm before it hit. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for believing I was strong enough to stand alone. I was, and I am. To Stephanie, I hope someday you understand what you lost. Not money, but the relationship we could have had in these final years. I hope you find peace with your choices. And to anyone watching this who feels invisible, discarded, or powerless, you're not. You have more strength than you know. Use it. Claim it. Live it. Because the greatest inheritance isn't what someone leaves you, it's the courage to live life on your own terms, for as long as you're blessed to draw breath. My name is Margaret Hartwell, and I am free. Thank you so much for watching this entire journey with us. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Margaret's message. And tell us in the comments, what would you do with your freedom if you had Margaret's courage? What dreams are you putting off that you should be chasing right now? We love hearing from you, and your story might inspire someone else. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to choose yourself. Never too late to live fully. And never, ever too late to stand up for your worth.